Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
What?
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they had transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm Sadaf Hassan, and this week we are doing an episode I've been wanting to do forever. Today we're diving into the chaotic, exciting, and sometimes very heartbreaking career of one Lindsay Lohan. She's the Disney darling who had Hollywood essentially at her feet for a very long time, then quickly became the tabloid obsession of the OOs, and now, bless, is an unlikely comeback queen. I was such a fan of hers when I was little, starting with The Parent Trap, which to this day is one of my all-time favorite movies. I just watched it the other day. I watch it every year. I love it so much. She was so charming in it, and she was such a good little actress. That red hair, her raspy voice, it was everything. Sarah, were you a fan of Lindsay's at some point during those early years?
Yes, I definitely was. I mean, I loved The Parent Trap. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I was a big fan of the Haley Mills Parent Trap, so I was actually reluctant to see a remake, but she was so charming that she won me over. As did Natasha Richardson, who was, a screen treasure. May she rest in peace.
Oh, I loved Trinity and Dennis Quaid, and then their chemistry together, that moment in the wine cellar. It was a very sexy movie. And I was like 10, 11, and I remember
It
watching
was very sexy. I remember the moms in the theater being like, oh, like the scenes where they're flirting are quite enticing.
I'm telling you, I watched it with my dad and my sister in the theater. And I remember my dad fell asleep and I was relieved because I was like, I'm having too much fun with this movie in a way I feel like I don't want to have with my dad sitting next to me. Like, it was really good. And Dennis Quaid was a bizarre sexual awakening for me at the time. I mean, listen, it wasn't bizarre at the time. Now it might be bizarre, but he was a smoke.
He was a handsome man.
He was a very handsome man.
He was a very handsome man, very charming, and kind of this like, okay, as much as he's so creepy now because he married that like young woman. He had this combination of kind of being like boyish, but also a daddy. And like,
yes,
I don't know it. And that's when they say charisma, right? Or X factor, right? Where it's like, he just has it. I'm like, that he's a movie star, just has it. Like, just this amazing combination of different things that you find attractive so that every generation wants to be with him.
Completely agree. And personally, I got to say, and maybe this is just for me, all I remember is that wine cellar scene, and when he had a little bit of that chest hair poking out between his button-up shirt, and she'd opened it up a little bit, and oh my God, I was feeling things. And then, of course, Natasha Richardson, who was so gorgeous and so good. Anyway, if you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, get into it. But okay, I want to get into the beginning of Lindsay Lohan. Was born in the Bronx in 1986, so definitely a millennial baby. I mean, I think she connects with mostly millennials these days. She was the eldest child of Dina and Michael Lohan. Her mom was a former dancer, and her dad owned a pasta business, but he had also a series of his own legal troubles. We will very much come back to that, don't you worry. Now, they started their child early. By age 3, Lindsay was signed to Ford Models. She did commercials for everything from Pizza Hut to Wendy's to Jell-O. Her breakthrough was in 1998 with our favorite, The Parent Trap. She was just 11 at the time, and she played twins, if you don't know, Hallie Parker and Annie James, switching between an American and a British accent like it was nothing. It was really impressive. Also, kind of amazing that we had that tech back then. Not that it was that long ago, but like, wow, we just saw Sinners now, which I think is the closest that's come to that use of I don't know, do you call it CGI? I don't know, but it was really impressive and seamless. Now, at the time, critics were comparing her to a young Jodie Foster. I remember if you go back and you read any review from back then, she was compared to pretty much everybody amazing at the time. Nicole Kidman, Meryl Streep. This was also a Nancy Meyers movie, which I love anytime. So it was a box office hit. It catapulted Lindsay into a Hollywood it girl, which is a term Sarah and I have many issues with, but as it was. But it was at a very young age, which, if you think about it now, is pretty wild. It was a little bit of a Shirley Temple situation. Now, she chased that with a series of popular millennial films as she got older. So there was Life Size, co starring Tyra Banks. Personal favorite, another Disney movie, Get a Clue. That was a really good one. And of course, Freaky Friday. That one really raked it in at the box office, and it won Lindsay again tons of great reviews. Then came the heavy hitter, Mean Girls, in 2004, written by Tina Fey, directed by Mark Waters. It was a cultural phenomenon. We all still quote it today. You hear it in every other rap song, like it's out there still. Now, around the same time, she launched a music career. If you don't know, her debut album was titled Speak. It sold over 1 million copies, which is pretty good. And I hope you all remember the iconic song Rumors, because I actually thought that was really good. It was her little anthem about being followed around by paparazzi, which is interesting. It was years before we started taking that conversation really seriously. And I remember, this might sound like a bit of an exaggeration, but there were a lot of comparisons made to the Princess Diana situation at the time. I think even in the music video, she shows herself being chased around while driving through a tunnel. Anyway, I loved that song. I'm going to insert a little clip right here.
Saturday, stepping into the club, the music made me wanna tell the DJ turn it up. I feel the energy all around, and my body can't stop moving to the sound. But I can tell that you're watching me, and you're probably gonna write what you didn't see. Well, I just need a little space to breathe. Can you please respect my privacy? Why can't you just let me do the things I wanna do? I just wanna be me. I don't understand why would you wanna bring me down when I'm only having fun. I'm gonna live my life. I'm tired of rumors starting. I'm sick of being followed. I'm tired of people lying, saying what they want about me.
Now, by 18, Lindsay had a Vanity Fair cover, like one of many covers, by the way. She had many covers. She had a record deal. She was being billed as the next Julia Roberts. She was everywhere. Magazine covers, talk shows, red carpets. Sarah, what do you remember of this era? Did you think Lindsay was going to become our next Julia or Meryl?
I mean, I thought she was kind of like the kid version of Julia Roberts, right?
Okay.
Where she had talent. She also had a really iconic look. She was kind of a sweetheart. I definitely thought that. I mean, I don't know if I thought she was going to become Meryl, because as much as I think Lindsay's very talented, I feel like she has such a specific look that she can't really disappear into a role.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I find it a little bit even harder to forget that Julia Roberts is Julia Roberts, despite the fact that she is very talented. I do find it a bit harder. Like I'm watching a Julia Roberts movie, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, of course.
right? I mean, and there's some people who that's just part of their persona as a performer, whether they want it to be or not. But yeah, it did seem like she was destined to, at the very least, maybe if she wanted to recede a little bit, be our generation's Jodie Foster, right? Somebody who always could work if she wanted to, would probably win an Oscar at some point. Yeah, could work as much or as little, and then people would always be happy to have her back. Because I know that's the case with Jodie Foster. Anytime she makes a comeback, it's an event, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even a comeback. It's just she never really fully recedes from her mind. She's so beloved, right? She can do whatever
Yeah.
she wants. And I think that a lot of us thought that that was going to happen for Lindsay because she was so talented and so charismatic. Yeah, I don't think any of us predicted what happened.
No, I don't think you could have at that time. And, she was one of several girls who were a whole thing at the time. As we've said so many times on the show, there's always an it girl for every season and every generation. And I mean, listen, I was pretty young, but I remember as I was getting older, and I was getting older as she was getting older, and we were around the same age. So I was a big movie buff. I loved following along with every Hollywood report, like I was deep in it. I liked to think, I suppose I should say, because what the hell did I know? But I liked to think that she would be like that next big movie star. that would be she'd be the face of someone in our generation, like maybe with the
Yeah.
Chad Michael Murray types, which is funny now, but that's what we had. And that is what tends to happen. You grow with them and then they become the next one. Here's the big difference. The Meryl Streeps and the Julia Roberts, they got to be movie stars. They still get to be movie stars with a level of anonymity that she didn't get, our generation didn't get because of social media. And also, websites like TMZ were not a thing when they were all getting into the business. So she didn't have that. I think now, and we've said this also so many times, I don't think movie stars exist the way that they used to. You really can't, because there's no mystery to it anymore, right? We know everything about you.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And she was the first millennial movie star, if you really think about it that way, because she became famous so young and all millennials adored her. She was a millennial movie star in every way. And she kind of had a similar trajectory to Britney Spears, who was one of the first uniquely millennial pop stars, right? And I mean, I think Britney Spears is probably Gen X, but she was a pop star for millennials.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Actually, they were supposed to make a movie together. This is an interesting fact, and it never happened. Do you know what movie they were supposed to make together? It became something else. I learned this while doing research for the Reheat. They were supposed to make a film adaptation of Gossip Girl instead of before. Britney Spears was going to be Serena van der Woodsen, and Lindsay Lohan was going to be Blair Waldorf.
You know what? Back then, could have been cute. I loved Crossroads.
Okay. I mean, anyway, I don't think it would have worked.
I'm probably being too kind. I know. I can't imagine it now.
They were supposed to make a movie together, though. And I just think that that's interesting because they were the quintessential millennial pop star, the quintessential millennial movie star, and they both had such sad, tragic lives, in part because, and we'll get into it, misogyny, in part because of the paparazzi, in part just because child stardom is morally wrong.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And actually, we're going to get into the Britney of it all right now, because she was a part of this kind of fall from grace that Lindsay had. It all overlapped. Okay, so let's take a look at when things started to turn, and kind of understandably in retrospect. In 2005, Lindsay was shooting Herbie Fully Loaded, if you all remember that, and was reportedly partying so hard that the studio had to pause production after she was hospitalized for, quote, exhaustion. Now, that is often Hollywood speak for something much worse. Fill in the blank. We don't want to get sued. But she was often late to set. Stories leaked about her being difficult to work with. At the same time, the tabloid industry was exploding. TMZ launched that year, which is pretty wild. And paparazzi were making hundreds of thousands of dollars off shots of Britney, Paris Hilton, and Lindsay stumbling out of clubs. I remember this era a little too well. It was constant. There were photos every day, every night. And it was very often the three of them. There's an infamous photo of the three of them leaving a club, and it's often referred to as the Holy Trinity. We will include it in the show notes if you want to take a look back. Lindsay was branded the wild child. People felt like she had corrupted Britney. She was photographed smoking, drinking, hopping in and out of random people's cars at 4 a.m. She would have arguments with paparazzi on the streets. It was chaotic at best. 2007, she was arrested multiple times for DUIs, one of which included cocaine possession. Her family drama was also very public at the time. Her dad, Michael, was in and out of jail. Her parents were divorcing, and her mom, rather than protecting her, was actually often seen partying alongside her. Yikes. This all meant that her career momentum slowed pretty drastically. You know, she had this really quick rise, very steady work. She was playing lead role after lead role, and then it hit a pretty immediate speed bump. By 2007, she was dropped from projects. She was replaced by younger stars. Some of her team quit, reportedly couldn't insure her because of the legal risks. And while male actors like Robert Downey Jr. were allowed messy redemption arcs, shockingly, not so shockingly, Lindsay was cast as unprofessional, unreliable, a lost cause. For years, she'd have trouble finding work, and I mean good work, and leading roles like she'd had before. Listen, Hollywood works fast. I often thought that someone like Emma Stone, because she had the same red hair, the same raspy voice, the same funny charm, kind of came in and stole her spot a little.
Yeah.
She became the new it girl, and not just Emma. I mean, it was a series of young women, and Lindsay, of course, went from it girl to late night joke. It was pretty fucking awful. Sarah, I can't help but think just how cruelly Hollywood tends to eat up its female stars. You mentioned the misogyny of it all earlier. That's certainly true. Listen, so many of these male stars were in those clubs too. They were partying with these girls too, but they never got written off in the same way. And I feel like Lindsay especially had such a small window before she was tossed right out. Why do you think that is? Like, why did she become such a damn target? And why in this particular era?
I mean, it's definitely sexism. I mean, if you look at it, and actually it's funny, Lainey Gossip talked about this even at the time about whether Lindsay Lohan could ever have a comeback if she kind of if this was a phase, right? And she was comparing her to Robert Downey Jr., who had just kind of come back as Iron Man and was becoming one of the biggest stars in the world. And Robert Downey Jr. like was arrested, right? Like he had lots of stuff happened with Robert Downey Jr. And yes, he had addiction issues, and addiction is a disease, and I have so much sympathy for him. But he came back to become one of the highest paid actors in the history of Hollywood, but also to be somebody who could do prestige picks like Oppenheimer as well. And people really embraced his comeback. People were really cheering him on. He became the face of Marvel Studios, the most important entertainment franchise, essentially, of our time. And can that happen to Lindsay? I mean, Lindsay's had a bit of a comeback, but it's like Netflix holiday movies. And now finally, after proving herself there, Disney is giving her her comeback with Freakier Friday. But she really had to earn it. And no one's ever going to bet on her the way they did with Robert Downey Jr. And that's because his past made him cooler, right? We still love a guy who has stories like this, right? Where it's like, when I was young, I ended up breaking into my neighbor's house because I was so drunk, I thought it was mine. And then he found me naked in his bed, right? For some reason, even though that is terrifying if you are the neighbor.
Wasn't he playing bongos naked? That's what I remember.
I think he did that too. Like he did a lot of stuff naked. This man did a lot of stuff. But that adds texture. And also, Iron Man was a character who was supposed to have a drinking problem. So it was kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Like, this is authentic. Whereas we want women to be perfect. We don't want them to have any of these issues. We don't want them to have these demons. And even when we create characters who have demons, the women who play them kind of are expected to be pretty perfect, right? I mean, I know that like Shonda Rhimes loves creating these characters who are flawed, but she doesn't get women who are known for being flawed to play them. Like think about, think about Inventing Anna. Julia Garner has a pretty tame image, right? Got married young. You don't see her coming out of the bars. So I just feel like in our society, we want even our rebellious women tame, and we don't want to give anyone the space to grow or make mistakes. I mean, I guess Drew Barrymore would be the only example of someone who made a comeback, but in movies, right? And got to do really big projects. But I think in her case, it was a little bit less public, right? We didn't have the internet, so she wasn't on TMZ. And B, she really self-flagellated. Like she came back and just really, really, did things that I would consider debasing. Like I felt so terrible for her that she had to really do this apology tour being like, I'm so sorry. I was a little girl who was poorly looked after and ended up on drugs. I'm like, why are you apologizing, woman?
Yeah. And I think even with Drew though, because she's still such a star and because all those tough bits are so in the past, we tend to forget. I don't think it was such an easy return for her either, right? Like, and again, I think partly because she is a woman, like when she did the Playboy cover and when she had that moment on Letterman where she flashed him, like there were a lot of moments like that where I think she was still getting castigated a bit, but you make such a good point. Lindsay was growing up. She was a teenager. She was so young. When you're a teenager and you have access, you live in a city and you're going to go to the bar and you're going to discover drugs and you're going to drink for the first time and fall in with the bad crowd for a bit. A lot of people go through that. It's actually a relatively average experience. In her case, she's doing it in front of the world, and because she has money and she's friends with a lot of very wealthy people and very famous people, she has access to even more. And I think that's where you'd hope that she'd have some protection. And there would be some kind of buffer here, like maybe her family or her agent or someone on her team who was looking out for her. And as we've seen with so many child stars in retrospect, especially in the last couple of years, as people have been looking at Nickelodeon and Disney and how these stars have fared over the years, there was never really that buffer for a lot of the people who struggled, right? We're going to get into that a little bit more just in a minute. But right now, I feel like we should take a quick break. Go check out that Holy Trinity photo while we do, please. We will be right back. And we're back. Okay, I want to take a quick moment, as with everyone we talk about, to dig into Lindsay's relationships because, wow, they were juicy. First up, and not only were they juicy, but they were also on every tabloid. That's what I remember. And I mean every teen magazine too. So first up, she infamously dated that 70s show star Wilmer Valderrama, who really got around. Lest we forget, he also dated Demi Lovato for quite a period. And she was significantly younger when he did date her. Maybe he's worth his own episode, Sarah, at some point. We do a Walmart
sketchy dude.
Sketchy dude. Now, then, most infamously, I might say, there was her feud/love triangle with Hilary Duff over Aaron Carter. My God. Sarah just tapped her head against the mic. Yeah, it was a time. It was a time, guys. And by the way, it was very real. Now, then she also dated DJ Samantha Ronson in 2008 to 2009. They were on and off again for quite a bit of time. What's interesting is, I mean, this was not really that long ago, but it made her one of the first major millennial celebs to have a same-sex relationship in the public eye, which is pretty crazy, especially when we look back now. She was crucified for that relationship. The rumors and the mockery were endless. Think about if she were doing that now, because I don't think she would get even an ounce of that treatment today. No. The paparazzi devoured it. A lot of folks now consider it queer history, which I think is definitely true. I mean, she was really... I hate to use this word, but I think it's the right word in this case. She was pretty brave to step out and be in this relationship as she was when there really wasn't anyone else doing it. They didn't talk about the relationship very much, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, they were constantly tailed, and there were a lot of jokes on TV about it. And she also dated a few heirs here and there, because why not? Why not? I would too if I had that. Now, during all this time, I hate to say it, there were a ton of lawsuits too. Now, in 2008, this one does make me laugh. A woman sued her for allegedly stealing her mink coat from a nightclub. The mugshots were truly iconic. Between 2007 and 2010, Lindsay was arrested at least 4 times and went to rehab 6 times. And when she did get acting work, like the 2012 Lifetime movie Liz and Dick, where she played Elizabeth Taylor, or the Paul Schrader film The Canyons alongside porn star James Dean, the reviews were pretty brutal. She wasn't turning in the great work that she did before. It was pretty clear that she was tired, and frankly, allegedly, she didn't seem very sober all of the time either. This was around the time that Oprah also gave her a reality show. This was in 2014. The show was called Lindsay. It was meant to document her attempted comeback. There was a lot of talk with Oprah where Oprah kind of served as a little bit of a mediator or a counselor. It was all very odd. It was strange then. It's so strange today.
It was weird.
It was really weird. And she kind of tried to get Lindsay to admit that she was taking drugs, and Lindsay would just insist it was like sleeping pills or whatever it was. I'll insert a little clip here.
Are you an addict?
Yeah.
And what is it you are addicted to? What is your drug of choice or drugs of choice?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Yeah. Because that in the past was a gateway to other things for me.
Other things like?
I'd never abused. I tried cocaine with alcohol, and I'd never.
That's when you were arrested the first time, correct?
Yeah, possession.
Yeah,
I had
possession,
it.
yes. And then I read that you said that you really hadn't done cocaine but 3 or 4 times.
I really hadn't done it. I really haven't done it more than 10 to 15 times. Of course, I said 3 or 4. I was terrified of being judged.
So what is the truth?
I've done it like 10 to 15 times. A lot of stuff went on when I was young with my family, and I grew up in a very chaotic home, and there were moments of everything just being wonderful and perfect, and then things being so uncontrollable and chaotic that, you know, it's something that people go through, and unfortunately I waited too long to face it, even though I've been going to see a therapist for years and years.
I was going to ask you this, as you were talking about going back, you know, the 6 times that you've been to rehab and all of the dysfunction around you and chaos. Do you think you are or were addicted to chaos?
I think so. Yeah.
Really?
It was a comfortable chaos for me.
But even all of that ended in disaster. There were missed shoots. There was constant tension with producers. This was around the time Lindsay felt a lot less like a person and honestly more like a punchline. She also, at one of these points, dyed her hair brown, which I remember for me personally, I felt like, oh no, this means it's truly all over. We're never coming back.
It's like when Felicity cut her hair. Like,
I was devastated. It was such a Felicity moment. Oh my God, absolutely. Okay, Sarah, when we look back on all these moments, I mean, my God, the Oprah moment and the show, those few roles she was getting, the constant DUIs, the Samantha Ronson of it all, do you feel like there were moments where she was given second chances? I mean, of all people, she had Oprah on her side.
I love Oprah, though. Oprah wasn't giving her a second chance. She was creating good television. She was creating spectacle, right? They were not setting her up for success. That was not what this person needed. A reality show is not a good place to get sober. So no, I don't think she actually was being given second chances. And Liz and Dick was also a spectacle. Like, everyone watched it as a drinking game. I don't think she actually was being given second chances, nor was anyone really trying to help her. It's actually quite sad how many powerful people seem to be kind of mocking her for sport, actually. Like, I loved that Oprah show, the show Oprah produced, but it really felt very unkind, right? Like, they made fun of the fact that she, you know, was probably still had substance problems, and substance problems are a disease. There's a weird scene where she reveals on camera that she had a miscarriage, and you get the sense that she doesn't want to reveal that, but she has to say that because they just won't believe her that she wasn't doing drugs. I don't know. There's just a lot of really upsetting stuff that ends up in the show. And I'm just like, why couldn't you have cut some of this?
I'm so with you. It was really strange. And God, I mean, as much as we love Oprah, I think there's enough moments even on the reheat where we've shown just how much she can also be very messy. Listen, she loves a bottom line. Even Miss Winfrey loves a bottom line. And if you were cashing in on Lindsay around that period, it probably wasn't for good reasons. I'm so with you. Even the Canyons, I remember feeling really icky about. Not only because part of the joke was that she's starring with a porn star, but Paul Schrader, I enjoy his movies a lot, but I felt like he knew what he was doing. I think he was exploiting her a little bit. And it was his own experiment, which is also a bit disgusting. Like, Lindsay Lohan was a human being, not an experiment. But, you know, now it has a little bit of a cult following.
Yeah.
And fair enough. But I think it reminds me of so many of even those older stars. Like, it's a little bit of a Marilyn moment. It reminds me of Jane Mansfield as well. Like, this kind of exploitation goes back years and years and years in the Hollywood machine. Like, you have an actress who makes it big, and then as soon as she starts struggling, people will watch her do just about anything. When it comes to Jane Mansfield, and by the way, in Mariska Hargitay's great new documentary, My Mom Jane, which is on Crave now in Canada, she talks a lot about this. It's a beautiful documentary looking back at her mom's career. But when her mother wasn't doing as well, she would go out and do sexier shows and live stage shows and movies that clearly kind of pandered to the audience that was not on her side. And I feel like that's exactly what this was. People were just making fun of Lindsay. They weren't actually watching her to see her in a movie and say she did a great job. Oh God, it feels even more disgusting now when I think back on it. It was pretty terrible. I really, really need to talk about Lindsay's parents for a second.
Yeah.
Because they were a big part of the problem. Dare I say they're probably still a big part of the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
You often hear former child stars now, and I think especially of Hilary Duff, talk about how having their family in their corner to protect and keep them grounded is what helps them maintain their sanity and keep them away from the dangers of Hollywood. But if that's the case, Lindsay didn't stand much of a chance. Not only were her parents like exceedingly messy, they definitely wanted fame for themselves. Her mom was her manager for a long period, and she also co-starred in an reality series with her other daughter, Allie, called Living Lohan in 2008. That was just about them. I don't know who watched that show. Without Lindsay, I don't know what we were watching. Mind you, her sister Allie was also trying to have a music career. I think their parents were trying to get all of their kids in front of the camera the best that they could, get a paycheck out of them. Again, they put Lindsay into modeling at age 3. You know, that's not a child's choice at that point. Her mom also had her own series of DUIs, keeping her name regularly on TMZ's homepage, as was Michael Lohan, who was much, much worse. He was also in a reality show called Celebrity Rehab, constantly in the news when he was. He even had paternity issues in the media, with women claiming he fathered their children. He was constantly brushing up against the law. He was constantly talking to paparazzi. He would sell out his own daughter. It was really, really shameful. At one point, Lindsay said, quote, "I feel like a second parent in the sense that I helped raise my family. I was put between my mother and my father a lot." And I have to assume she's also referring to how she financially supported them. There's no doubt that she was bringing in a huge part of the money that they were living off of. Now, as trouble in her life brewed, she said she'd cut off contact with her dad, calling his behavior unpredictable and hard to deal with. Good for her. Sarah, how do you think her parents impacted her trajectory? Because I feel like they definitely were not helping in any way.
Well, I mean, they weren't helping. They started her career in show business, as you pointed out, right? They put her in modeling at the age of 3. And they're two very volatile people who had a lot of problems. And this is what happens most of the time with the child stars. This is not just a one-time thing. Even the child stars who turn out better, like Beyonce, her dad was horribly inappropriate when he was her manager as a kid, right? Like, I mean, not in this vein, right? Like, he was more dignified as a human being, but also really pushed her. So, and Beyonce is kind of like the best case scenario.
Yeah.
This is one of the really horrifying stories. And there was something about boomer stage parents of this vintage doing stuff like this, right? Because this is not the only story. I mean, at least her parents never sued her, a la Leighton Meester's mother. Like, this is just something that seems to happen. If you want your kid to be in show business from a young age, you really have to question, why do I want that, right? Is it for me? And usually it is. Sometimes it's fame, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's both. I think in this case it was both, which is really a powerful combination. I think that's why she was so exploited. They really did not care about her well-being because she was financially supporting everyone. And also they seemed to really like notoriety, right? Like Dina Lohan. And like, I don't want to vilify people too much for liking fame because lots of people like fame, but like she really seemed to be okay with any type of attention, right? Any type of attention whatsoever.
Same with Michael. God, what a pair.
Yeah.
I feel like, at least you should have one parent who's got it together. Lindsay had two, just a shit show pair. It was so unfortunate. She really lost the lottery there a little bit. And also when I think of momagers, and by the way, we did a previous episode on momagers we'll link to in the show notes. It's a fun one to dig into. But Kris Jenner, I think, some people might say she's the worst example. I think in a lot of ways, she's the best example. She certainly made a business out of her family. And that while that's given her children a lot of fame and wealth, I think there's always something to be said about why you want to use your children as products, because that's essentially what you're doing. Your kids become a brand. All you're doing most of the time is figuring out how to sell them the best way. I just feel like inherently it's hard for me to see how managing their career is ever a healthy thing. I don't think a parent should be a child's manager and be a part of their team in that way. You should just be their parent, because I feel like then you're hitting up against getting them the best deal, but also wanting to protect them. How do those things work together? I don't totally get it. Another really infamous one from the same era as Lindsay is Joe Simpson, Jessica Simpson and Ashley Simpson's dad. Remember that? That was horrific. He also wanted his own piece of fame.
And kept talking about his daughter's boobs, which was very weird.
Yes, it was very strange. And of course, again, even going back to Kris is famous now herself in her own right. So I don't know. I feel like anytime a parent is investing in that way, they probably want a piece of the pie themselves, right? And that doesn't bode well. I just think bad idea. Hilary Duff is such a rare example, isn't she? Like it's hard to name it's hard to name many child stars who fared better and had better families around them, isn't it? Can you think of any others?
No, it's really hard. And Jodie Foster speaks about this pretty articulately about how it's just too much pressure to be the breadwinner. Like, even if your parents are nice to you, like just having a child with a job, any type of job, is ridiculous. I mean, most forms of child labor were made illegal in the 20th century, right? Most forms of child labor. But entertainment remains. This is kind of an exception, and the days are often very long. Megan Fellows, who played Anne of Green Gables, has also spoken quite articulately about this in the Canadian context, and a lot of people assume in Canada it's better, and actually it is not. She said the rules about attending school are very lax for child actors in Canada, and so she didn't really have an education. She kind of grew up on set and didn't really learn the basics she was supposed to learn. So it's not like she could transition to another job if she decided she didn't want to be an actor when she was an adult. This is basically her only skill in life. So, I mean, obviously, in my opinion, I'm very biased. I feel like we should just try not to have child actors. I don't think that there is a reason for children to be acting. I really don't.
Yes, I totally agree with you. You know what I want to mention, because God, the timeliness of it all. I think of Alison Stoner, who was in a lot of those Missy Elliott videos dancing. They were in Cheaper by the Dozen. They use they, them pronouns, by the way. They have a new book out right now. It literally dropped this week. It's called Semi Well Adjusted Despite Literally Everything. And I feel like that title says it all. They were a child star very early on, and also like a little bit of overlap with Lindsay as well. And they really struggled. They really went through it. And they talk a lot about what it was like not having your family protecting you in the way that you would hope you did, and also having a team of agents and publicists and managers who are really just seeing you as a company and how best to get more money out of you because they all get a chunk, and you not being able to speak up for yourself. It's really, really fascinating, but I think it does speak really well to this. I don't know that the tide is actually turning in Hollywood, but I think the conversation is finally happening with some real gravity in a way that it hasn't before. I don't know that it might actually change anytime soon, but, you know, Shirley Temple was way back when. That was decades ago. And this is the same conversation.
And the problem is she turned out really well. So I think that for years made us think that child stardom was harmless because she became like a diplomat. So, but it was before the paparazzi. It was a very different era. And also some people are just exceptions. For some people, things that would destroy other people don't destroy them. I know Judy Garland did not fare well, and she was a child star. So it's too much responsibility for a kid to be supporting their family. Add on top of that, if they become a huge star and a whole movie's chances are riding on them, a whole studio is riding on them, that's just too much responsibility for a kid. It's pretty much too much responsibility for a single adult, but like for a child.
There's got to be some layer of advocacy. Like, who is there for the kid? If we can have something like an intimacy coordinator, we can have someone who's there to protect the kiddos. Like, there's got to be someone where that's their whole job. I don't know. I'd love to see that come one day, hopefully. In the meantime, let's take one more break. We'll be right back. So after 2014, Lindsay essentially disappeared from Hollywood. There was this long stretch where she wasn't starring in anything. She really just dropped away. We all thought that that was it. It was over. She moved abroad, first to London, then Dubai. She opened nightclubs, oddly enough, in Greece, popped up in random commercials, occasionally in indie films, quite a few British ones, actually. In a way, she seemed to have stepped out of the Hollywood machine, which also seemed like a really good thing. Clearly, if you're going to make a break, you got to get out of the whole thing. In Dubai, she wasn't being chased by paparazzi. She could live quietly for the first time in years. Such a smart decision. Not necessarily Dubai specifically, but moving somewhere where you don't have that same vulture culture. I think that was such a smart call. Then in 2022, so we're picking up the pace here, she headlined a Netflix Christmas movie, which I'm sure we all know well, called Falling for Christmas. Cheesy as it was, like, it was not a good movie, but come on now. All those Netflix Christmas movies movies are not good movies. But as we know, they do very well. Everybody watches them. We all devour them. Listen, I watch them all. So everyone tuned in. Everyone was really excited to see her come back. Critics were surprised. She was still just as charming as before. I think her acting was not quite as good as it was before, but also when you're in a Netflix Christmas movie, the bar is not that high. But it did hit at a perfect moment. Nostalgia for the OOs is so high, and audiences were. And, this is how the reheat came to be. This was the time when we were all re-examining how unfairly stars like her, like Britney and Paris, were treated. Suddenly, we all wanted a Lindsay renaissance. I mean, I've been waiting for one forever. So she signed a multi-film deal with Netflix. She voiced commercials for Allbirds and Planet Fitness. She even recorded a Christmas single. In 2023, so the following year, she announced she was expecting her first child, a son. She married financier Bader Shamas, gave birth to her son, and by all accounts just seemed and seems happy and settled. She's also got her red hair back. God bless. Mashallah, she looks gorgeous. I couldn't be happier.
Never change your hair. Felicity
Please.
taught us that.
Renaissance really is the word for what's happened. So last week, the sequel to Freaky Friday called Freakier Friday dropped. Now, this is really like a moment, isn't it, to have the Freaky Friday sequel, which I think was entirely based on her having this incredible comeback. And it brings back a lot of the cast, including Jamie Lee Curtis, who apparently they talked a lot about this during the press run, but she's always stayed in touch with Lindsay, which I think is really lovely. I'm not a big fan of Jamie Lee Curtis for other reasons, but I love that. And Lindsay's back at it. She's good, like she's working on it. She's better. She's got some solid reviews for the movie. The charm is right back. She's also got an upcoming Hulu series she's producing and that she's going to star in. There's no tabloid drama. There's only joy seeing how she's recovered. She's even reunited with her family, all of whom joined her at the movie's red carpet. I believe Michael was not there, but that's probably for the best. Yeah.
Fair.
It's a hell of a return. However, and I know you're going to agree with me, Sarah, I find it a little bittersweet. Here's why. It's almost as if Hollywood decided she can come back now. And why is that? Because she's married, she's a mom, she's quote unquote cleaned up. She seems sober, she seems healthy. It's just like she checks off everything on this invisible rubric. And again, Robert Downey Jr. didn't have to do that. All the men of the past didn't have to do that. She came up, as we said, just as social media did. So I really do think she didn't really stand a chance. She was exposed at a level that I don't think anybody was prior to her. It took everyone being more media conscious and having some damn ethics to make this comeback happen. A lot has been said even, and I didn't want to get into this too much, but I'll just quickly touch on it because it's been such a hot topic. But a lot has been said about the alleged cosmetic work she may have done to look as great as she does now. But I think that's such an unfair talking point when every other celebrity, including Brad Pitt, over 40, has clearly been doing the same thing. Everyone's getting a facelift. Okay, that's what's happening. I don't really know why we have to hold Lindsay to that measure so intensely. She looks gorgeous. She looks a lot like she did before. She doesn't look that different. Whatever she's done, it's good work. I'm not mad about it. Sarah, how do you think she was able to make the comeback, but also do you feel like it's fair the way that it's happened?
I mean, no, it's not fair because it should have happened earlier. I feel like she got put in Hollywood jail for a really, really long time. And she didn't do anything wrong. She was an exploited child who developed health issues because substance use is a health issue and didn't really get help. People just kept exploiting her.
Yeah.
First, they exploited her as a star, and then they exploited her, as you mentioned, so articulately, as a joke, as a punchline. And no one seemed to want her to get clean. At a point, it really did seem like people were almost rooting for her to die. Right? It really did seem like, or even if they weren't rooting for that, they were okay with that being the natural consequence of the way we were treating her. She was treated like literally her life didn't matter. And I don't think it's dramatic to say that. No one was really saying, okay, this is somebody having a serious health issue. We should help them. As awful as what happened to Britney Spears with her conservatorship was, as terrible as that was, I did feel like at a certain point, people did think, okay, this is a cry for help. Like we need to to help her. And that was why initially I think no one objected to the conservatorship, because we knew about it for years. People
Yeah.
didn't seem to be as eager for her to die or as okay with her dying. I don't know what happened with Lindsay Lohan, this perfect storm where people just treated her like completely disposable in the media,
Yeah.
like just completely disposable in this way that in retrospect, how disgusting were we in this era that we treated someone whose brain was still developing like it would just be okay if she died, right? And, at least we got some jokes out of her.
Yeah.
So it is a miracle that this woman survived. It is a miracle she seems happy. Have all the plastic surgery you want. I don't care, right? Like, I don't care. She's clearly got good doctors. She's getting good work done. And as you said, the men do it too. And they feel pressure. You know who actually speaks about this really articulately, about how it's almost impossible to resist the pressure to do this, is Penn Badgley on his
really?
podcast. Well, he talks a lot about how it's really weird to grow up, because he was also sort of a young star, where you're young, you're growing up, and people just on the internet are like, your body's weird.
Yeah.
And just like, or you're getting wrinkles, right? And like, how do you separate yourself from that when you're inundated with comments? So I feel like we just need to accept that celebrities are going to get this stuff done, because anybody who receives this much scrutiny and has the money to do it is going to end up doing it, right? If people just kept coming up to me in real life and were like, you've got wrinkles now, because that's the equivalent, that's like on social media where people just said that. I would probably, after a few weeks, if I had the money, be like, well, now I need to find a doctor and do something about that.
Listen, I'm with you. I'm very pro surgery. You get what you want. Treat yourself. Maybe I'll get Botox one day. I don't know. I'm leaving it open. I don't judge anybody for anything. And, again, in Hollywood, and you touched on this, there's so much pressure. She was probably feeling infinite pressure making this comeback. I don't blame her in any way. There's a reason she also dyed her hair red again. Like, come on. She knows that that's what people want to see, and that's what's expected. You mentioned Penn Badgley. He's also a former child star, one of the few who've had a pretty good, like, clean trajectory. And you mentioned his podcast, which is called Pod Crushed. And I do want to mention Pod Crushed had a great episode with Alison Stoner, who I mentioned earlier. We'll link it. It's a really great one. And they touch on so many of the themes that we talked about. But one thing I do want to add, because Sarah, you were mentioning this, but why were we so nasty to Lindsay? I think one of the reasons is the likability factor, which men don't face, only women face, right? Like, you've got to be cute, you've got to be charming, you've got to be funny, and all these other things. And I hate to make the Hillary versus Lindsay comparison, because God knows that was a feud for years, but let's do it. Hillary was always the wholesome halo above her head gal, and I love Hillary Duff. I'm not saying this to spite her or anything. I think that's what the world decided that she was. Like, she was the quote unquote good one, right? And Lindsay was the bad one. She was the one who went to the clubs and who did XYZ. By the way, Hillary did all that too. But anyway.
Yes.
And so Lindsay got written off as that one. And I think it didn't help when she dyed her hair brown and black. Like, then you fall into the cliches even more.
Never change your hair.
Never change your hair. So she just wasn't as quote unquote likable. Do I personally agree with that? No, but I do think when the media decides who you get to play, then that's the role that is given to you. You get stuck with that for a long damn time. Evidently, you run off to Dubai to get a clean slate.
Which is actually such a great place for her, because, I mean, yes, the drinking laws in Dubai are complicated, and there is drinking that happens, but there's less of a drinking culture. And for various reasons, you can look up their laws and all these things that regulate drinking in Dubai. So if you're trying to get clean and find a sober circle of friends who still want to do things with you and be active and go out, this is actually like probably the best possible environment.
Yeah.
A cosmopolitan city where it doesn't have the same drinking culture as New York or LA. I think this is such an informed choice she made. She clearly did some research. Like, honestly, I feel like Lindsay Lohan, either through her travels or through Googling fun cities where people don't drink that much, I don't know, like, she really found the best environment.
I think that, and the fact that paparazzi are illegal, she must have Googled that. It reminds me of Bruce Willis and Demi Moore when they were together and they were raising their family. They picked Idaho to move to. Idaho, very different from Dubai. I'd probably choose Dubai, but they were smart because there is not paparazzi littered all around Idaho, and they were able to raise their kids as relatively normal people. So all of which is to say, if you want a different life, you can very much choose that as a celebrity. That's all we're saying. Wink, wink. Okay, so this brings us to our final segment. Hindsight is 2025, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of this story. I gotta say, and I'm taking it out of Lindsay's hands because I feel like so much of this is due to the people who were running her life. And I said it before, I just wish she had an advocate. I wish her parents got their shit together. There was someone who was on her team who was looking out for her. And I'm so sad that she didn't have that. Sarah, what would the one thing be for you that you would have liked to see differently in her life or that she did differently?
I can't really judge her for any of the decisions she made because they are so impacted by the way she was brought up. And I feel like as soon as she kind of had her, I feel like she actually turned her life around remarkably quickly. And no judgment at all from me because substance use disorder is a disease. She was not getting the help she needed. I mean, yes, she had some stints in rehab, but she didn't have a support network. If you leave rehab to come to people who are not supportive of you, it is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we all saw what happened to Matthew Perry, right? I mean, it is very, very difficult. And so I don't fault her for anything. I have nothing but empathy for Lindsay Lohan. As a society, why did we create a love triangle where Aaron Carter was the center and we had 3 children that we thought were fighting? This is a very weird thing. Why was Aaron Carter at the center of any love triangle at all? That's just me as a society. I think that's the most bizarre part. But obviously, we should not have made this woman into a punchline. I mean, like she was a sick child. She was a sick child.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we as a society have more empathy and have become a bit less sexist, because the misogyny that was focused on a little girl, like the fact that just shows you how much the world hates women, that we were willing to be this misogynistic to a child.
Well, isn't it funny? Because even then, like she was 17, 18, we're calling her this messy woman, but even Robert Downey Jr., it was like his boyish charm. He's so boyish. It's like, and he's well into his 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm just so glad we have her back now. I guess if anything, we can say, keep the red hair girl. Never should have dyed it dark. She looked good, though, I must say. She can certainly pull off blonde. She can pull off the black, but I just love the ginge. I love the ginge, and now we got it back. God bless.
And I actually feel bad for her because I think that the red hair is what makes it hard for her to disappear into roles because it's so much a part of her signature. And I do think maybe in the future, after she's reintroduced herself, maybe she can play parts where she's allowed to wear a wig on occasion, right? I mean, Nicole Kidman got to that point eventually. We allowed Nicole Kidman to get to that point. And I know
that's true.
And I know she did that through making lots of art movies, but like, I want you to keep your red hair, Lindsay, but really it's not about me. I hope that you can play different roles and experiment more with your hair color to make the part more believable.
I'm very curious what her future is going to be like in Hollywood. Like, I think it's really great she's producing her own work. I think that's a smart call and exactly what she should do. But yeah, it's going to be tough for her to disappear into roles. So let's see what happens. She's certainly not the only celebrity out there who has a hard time doing that. We're rooting for her. We are rooting for you, Lindsay. We love you, my queen. I've waited for this moment forever. Me and Sarah are going to go see Freakier Friday next week. We couldn't be happier, okay? And I hope you all do too.
I only have love in my heart for Lindsay Lohan. So much love.
And that is the episode. Thank you to all you listeners. You can listen to more of The Reheat for free on the Seeker app, and you can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Steph. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me on Instagram at Sahagian Sarah. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you would like us to keep growing, we would really love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.